Hey you guys, so a few months ago I ordered some worms. I believe it came in a 1,000 or 1 pound container, and this is what they came in. I ordered them from Uncle Jim's Worm Farm. No affiliated, with them or anything. I just seemed to be where a lot of people got them from, and to be honest, I mean it was just simple. I think it was like 20 bucks or so, if I remember right. But nonetheless, it's been a few months now, and I've been keeping up with them. Here's the container I keep them in. I just keep a piece of newspaper. This is actually just the way I store it. So like it's like this, with the cover just kind of halfway across it, just kind of holding some moisture. I typically keep this in my basement. Well, I always do actually. I just thought I'd do this up here just because it's a little bit better lighting. It doesn't stink or anything, and it's not supposed to, so if you're doing that, if it stinks, then you're doing something wrong. As well as like having a cover on it that it has like a screen or something. I haven't had a worm try and escape yet, and supposedly that's one of the things that they'll do if they're not happy with their environment. So I'll take that as a positive, because I really don't know that much about worms. But so basically, I mean, I got all sorts of stuff in here. I got some straw, egg cartons, because I have the chickens, so anytime I get like a soiled carton back, I'll scrap it and use it in here. Lots of egg shells and just regular, just like kitchen waste. So, I mean, my apple cores every day I throw in there, and numerous other things. And that's kind of what brings me to this, is I got a little bit of an abundance of stuff. Girlfriend made fruit salad, so I got a bunch of scraps from that. And then I got this little container I use this, keep this on the counter every day. And it has a little charcoal filter in there so it don't stink. Not that it really does anyways. But all my coffee grounds every day go in here. Got a little celery, apple core. So I mean, this is typically what I feed them with. So well, once a week this will get filled up, and then I'll bring it downstairs and scrape back corner on the compost bin here and feed them. So I could leave a link for this in the description, just because it is pretty nice and handy, and it's easy to keep clean, which is what I like about it. It's not like it's unsanitary really. But yeah, so with the abundance of this, I figured what better time to start up a second worm bin. So I'm no professional at this stuff. I mean, I hope you don't expect me to be, but the way I'm doing it is I'm just going to be dividing kind of like half the, a colony, I guess you'd say, of worms. And I'm going to make this into a second bin. So what I did real quick before this, I went out and got some used straw. I just use that for my chickens. So it's got a little chicken manure on it, but not much, because I think it's pretty acidic. So you don't want to add really chicken manure itself. And then I got a bunch of mulch, just off a pile that I've had sitting, so it's halfway decomposed, so it should be perfect for this. I'm actually going to kind of divide this between the two bins. Not all of it's going to be needed. And then I just got some peat moss, and that's kind of the medium I used when I made that first bin. I used some leaves I chopped up, and a lot of peat moss. This time though, I'm going to be able to use a lot of the finished compost already that's in here, as I have not harvested it yet. So I'm kind of hoping this will give it a little kick start and make things a little bit easier now, just to get a larger population. So I think what I'm going to do here is just dump this on top of that newspaper for now, because newspaper is also a great medium. I should probably grab some of that. I do have some, so I'll toss that in here as well. But first thing I'm going to do is just dump this in here, and then I'm going to wet the peat moss. In this bucket here, I've got my water that I'm going to wet with, and then as well as, like I said, those egg cartons that have been soiled. So I'm just kind of letting them soak, just because they do absorb a lot of water. So I just don't want them to take away all the moisture right off the bat. So as you can see, this is a pretty good block, and it is compressed. But that's all I had used in my first one. I'm not sure if that's a lot or a little, but Probably use around that, maybe a little less this time. I believe you pronounce it coconut coir. That's what a lot of people will use, and you buy that in blocks, very similar to this, I guess. I think a lot of people buy that online. This is pretty much readily available anywhere, any of the big box stores around by me. So I'm just going to break that up a little bit. Just so you can kind of see what I got here, just a couple inches here. I'm going to take some of that water, dump her in. This stuff does absorb quite a bit of water, so that's probably going to take quite a bit. So one of the reasons why I'm actually making the second bin is, I guess worms self-regulate their population. So they'll only produce as many worms as basically feasible for the area that they have to live in. So my hopes is with this, I'm going to increase my population, which in turn, would lead to more worm bins in the future. And in turn of that, it'll leave me with more vermicompost. So I guess when you squeeze this, it's supposed to be like a wrung out sponge. So this might be a little bit on the wet side, but I actually do have a lot more ingredients to add though, so I'm not going to be too worried about it. Plus, once this sits for a while, it's going to absorb a little bit more because there's still a lot of chunks in here. So that's what we're looking like now. That's probably dwindled down to about an inch across the bottom of this. But with adding, like I said, with more, the straw and the mulch, and then of course everything that I bring over with the worms, I'm going to be all right. So actually what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to go grab that newspaper I was talking about. I got a paper shredder that I shredded in. So I'm just going to grab some of that and add it in here because it won't hurt nothing. So here you go, it's just a paper shredder here. And you really only want to use newspaper type print. You don't really want to use like colored printings. I guess there's dyes in the ink. I've heard misconceptions on both sides of that. So I'm not sure to believe it or not. But you can tell anything that's got that waxy feel to it. I just avoid using it. But there's tons of people out there that all their junk mail and everything, it all goes in here. So even that alone just dried this up substantially. So got a pretty good medium there. I'll grab some of our straw and our mulch here. I'm going to take probably quite a bit of this. And I'm just going to blend that right in. I'm going to leave a little bit with them worms. And I'm just going to toss it. I think the straw helps aerate this. I've read some places that you're supposed to kind of like toss your basically your worm bed around, and I'm not sure how good it is to disturb your worms like that. Just because even if you're using just a little claw like this, I have to imagine you're injuring a lot of them. Don't know how much it matters. Just trying to play it safe. So that looks pretty good here. We'll take newspaper off that one. So that's what we're looking at right now. Maybe a little excessive on the straw for now, but it'll all decompose. So yeah, I'm just gonna mix this around a little bit, find some good worms. Looks like we got a large portion here. I'm gonna start tossing some of them in here. Oh yeah, you can see now. Lots of worms there. I'm just going to toss them right in. See, there's an apple that went bad. Just tossed it in here. Lots and lots of worms. And again, there's really no smell to this. Even though it looks kind of nasty, and it kind of is nasty, I guess, if you think about it, but there shouldn't be any really odors. So I'm literally going to roughly take about half this bin and put it in there, as I want to give this bin a jump start on it, while still leaving enough in this bin that, you know, they're going to survive as well. As long as I'm in here, I'm going to kind of turn this a little bit, because I disturbed them enough already. Alright, so next I'm going to do the feeding on these. What I typically do is I'll take my little cultivator here and I'll just dig like a hole. And then with whatever I got, it's over here now, I'll just dump some of it in there, in that hole, and then I'll recover it and bury it. One of the reasons why you want to bury it is because otherwise flies and, you know, gnats and stuff just from like outside will be attracted to it if they get that smell, especially with the fruit like this. So they'll be attracted to it, and then you'll have, you know, things other than worms in your bin. So I mean, with it being in my basement, like I said, I really don't want that to happen. So we'll dump the rest of that in there. Then I'll divvy up my little compost bin here. like I said, a lot of this is coffee grounds and just little odds and ends. Looks like mostly coffee grounds for this week. Alrighty. So yeah, like I said, typically once I put their new food in there, and I'll rotate that. So every week I'll kind of put it in a certain spot. So this is in the corner this week. Next week I'll put it like in the middle here on one side. Next week in the next corner, and I'll just keep a rotation of it. One of the reasons why you do that, I guess, is in order to keep worms out of certain areas. So like if you're feeding over here, the worms will most likely be all, for the most part, in that section. So you're able to basically harvest some of your worm castings with minimal amount of worms in it at the time. But yeah, so you'll just take your pile and recover up basically what you just did there. Oh, and I forgot to add my egg cartons here. So we'll just grab them out of the water. And typically what I do is I just, let's go ahead, a bit of water. I'll just tear them. I'll just break them down into smaller chunks. Kind of just like so. And just spread them kind of evenly around. Nothing's an exact science with this. And all I'll do is, being that I didn't do it before, like I should have, before I added the worms, I'm just going to kind of mix it in here, just so the worms have access to it. Not that they can't come up and get it themselves. It's not like that. But yeah, that's pretty much it then. So I've got a couple bins now. Now I've divided my colony, and that's one, then this is one, and this is gonna settle quite a lot, you know, just because it's pretty aerated with all that straw right now. Then I'll just take my newspapers and I'll lay it right back across the top like they were. They're getting pretty beat up now. I'm gonna have to get some new ones. But I'll just lay that across the top, and then what I do is I actually just take, I got a little pump sprayer here, grab it, and then I'll just, every day or so I'll go downstairs and I'll just give it a little squirt across the top, and then that's just to keep the moisture in there. This bin's looking a little wet right now actually, so I might back off for a little while, because I don't have holes in it or anything. I mean, my thinking on it is they've got enough room in there where they can just come up if you know it's too wet for their liking. But otherwise, a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll poke holes in the bottom of their bin and even set this, say that this bin was empty, they'll set this bin with the holes in it inside that one, and then you can harvest the juice, which is basically compost tea. And you'll dilute that with water and then use it to water your vegetables, whatever, because it's all organic then. But yeah, so I mean, this will go right downstairs just like that. You'll put the lid on it and I just leave it cracked just like so. And I guess that's how you divide your worm colony with hopes to make more. Well guys, I hope this video was informative if you're looking to do the same thing. Obviously I'm very small scale right now. I do have hopes of, kind of getting a few more bins just to keep at least myself sustained with vermicompost. So then in the future I'll be able to plant my own seed and use the vermicompost in it for the garden and everything. So if this video did help you out, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel, as I'll probably be making more videos about the worms in the future. And leave a comment if you have any questions about anything I did here. Thanks for watching.